Alright, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here. Inmendham. So, just one blob of brain. Okay. Reflexively reacting to 60 plus years of, 65 years of participation in the parade of human occupation of planet Earth. So I think, I titled the video something like Personal Evolution versus, and Cultural Evolution. Just because it's a mixture of just some observations about how you acquire your insights into perspective, and then you have to live with it. Once you realize something, and it changes the game you're playing because you realize the game is more nuanced and not as sensible as you had hoped. So I guess I'll just title this something like They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Because the movie, I saw it again and last night, and it is a nice little anti-natalist movie in the sense of creating a narrative that basically shows a bunch of crass futility and in existence, and that it's a pretty disgusting spectacle, and that's nothing to be proud of. Anyway, and something in my eye. And so it basically bent my perspective in the sense of it's in my head, and so it's part of the narrative of even this week's evolution in my philosophical perspective is nuanced by the recent events, you could argue. And even though, so the theme doesn't change, but there's a different sea breeze. There's some kind of difference that makes a difference. And so that's sort of what so anyway, so the video is a bit of a mess. No, it's really, I think it's useful as a commentary on how we live the life, and you gain information through the experiences, and it's the very fact that you understand, you have to wait for the experiences before you can really know it or grok it or sense it or identify with it. And so there's people who would like mock a vegetarian or something, and it's just out of their perfect ignorance that they would do that, in the sense that they're just not appreciating the reasons why somebody would be in that position. So in the movie there's two characters that are pretty much lost and having little prospect of finding something sensible in life, and meaning, purpose, function. And there could be people just, maybe even I could have. Maybe if I saw the movie when I was 15, I would have just, boring. Whiners, something like that. Put in some category of, where, and then later, through life experience, I recognized that, yes, this melancholy kind of perspective is better thought out than I thought, that it's more reasonable, a reaction to the indignity of this squalor life. And yeah, and so I'm just saying that a key perspective I guess occurred to me when I was much younger is that you shouldn't wait for you to have to personally experience something for you to be capable of understanding why that perspective exists, I guess, or appreciating that there are things. So it's like I can think before I became a vegetarian, there was a part of me, I suppose, that was hostile. I mean, our let's just say most vegetarians back then seemed to be just being antiers. You know, they were just they were just being difficult. You know, and but a part of me understood that, yeah, but I get the part where it's bullshit, you know, eating animals. But it's just that I didn't get it in the context of how they were portraying it as, you know, they almost seem like hypersensitive, or, you know, like they were just being a pain in the ass. You know, demanding that the restaurant change its menu for them, that kind of stuff. It just seemed like they were just being a jerk, you know. And but you know, because I lacked enough perspective to realize that, yes, once I realized that it's not a good thing to do, but I still wouldn't be them. You know, I still wouldn't expect cultural institutions to change because I've changed. I guess that would be part of it. And that if those institutions are going to change, they have to change through a process. And it's not going to, you know, it's not going to be, you know, it's going to require something more than me showing up at the restaurant and being a pain in the ass. All right, so that's a longer explanation than I wanted, but whatever. So yeah, so basically I'm reflecting on some thoughts provoked by the movie, but they're also just still the thoughts I've always been attempting to argue, and I'm just arguing the context of how well or badly a movie demonstrates or creates empathy with the position. So in the movie there is it's a side part of the movie. It's just a a side dish of rhetoric insulting the reckless reproducers, and there's value in that commentary, and it rings very true, and it's sort of an obvious statement that just ignorance breeds. Because if you give it any reasonable thought, there's no reason to impose, to drag somebody into this shit, and it is shit. I mean, it's a shit culture. Everything is mockably crass and molesty. The whole damn world is molesty. I mean, it's just people making a living, molesting the truth to fuck somebody over to make a living, and that's a pretty shitty world to force somebody to become a participant in, that kind of thing. All right. So anyway, leave us play the video. This, it was a lot. I've been working. Well, okay, I have to have more volume than that, I believe. No, that looks okay, actually. So I'll leave it alone. So I was saying I've been working. So, yeah, I just been doing, I've been more active. Had projects imposed on me. Duties. whatever. And yeah, it's just taxing, and I'm just not. Yeah, I'm just not physically. I'm physically okay. I mean, I'm physically strong and all that kind of stuff. I just mean that I'm. There's something, something gone buggy with my blood sugar or something. I mean, something's just wrong. And whatever. And so it's just been difficult. But it's always difficult. So if I don't have this, then I have some other frickin' condition that blights me. And that's, sort of been my life. It's just getting through everything in some kind of surviving it. That's all. Just surviving your life. It really is. Yeah. They shoot horses, don't they? Yeah, an older movie. Back from. Okay, so yes, they're all old now. Something. I mean, that's just part of what you watch too. Is just everything. All the icons fall, and everybody. I mean, half the people in the movie are, 3/4 of the people in the movie are dead. It's just more than that, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, it's just spooky. Are the Left Behinders? So it takes place in the Depression, but you don't really. You don't get the feel. I didn't get the feel for it being the Depression, so it is kind of timeless in that sense that there's no real hard references to any one period in time, except for the events themselves. But I mean, obviously the musical. There's reasons, there's ways to detect how old it is. I'm just saying. I mean, what period it's supposed to be. But I just mean they're not overt. It was, basically pointing out how, but the cows aren't dumb enough. So the joke in the movie is a point in the movie where this reference gets to mean something isn't just the idea that you shoot a horse when it's suffering pointlessly, and that and we should basically give humans the same courtesy, is to not oblige them to struggle on broken legs or a broken psychology, in the sense of psychology that's recognized the meat grinder and that we're just being fed to it. So there's a line in there about cows going to slaughter. And the snarkyism is basically, but they don't know it, and we do. We participate, even though we know where it goes. People weren't something. Just my concern wasn't. It was. I think I was talking about the fact that I didn't see people in my youth as something to be. I didn't worry for them. I worried for me. Okay, and it's not like I was overtly usury of people. I didn't do that. I wouldn't steal. I wouldn't drink their blood, so to speak. But I didn't. My concern wasn't very sincere, in the sense that I was nice for reasons. Schemes. It's. There wasn't. I wasn't very genuine. I guess the point is that I was selfish and just seeing what's in it for me, and that was a big change in perspective. One of the bigger ones was that reflection that I'm the asshole. That's a demonstration of a pretty shitty character, if that's all I can do on this planet of all these feeling things, including people, is figure out what's in it for me. Ooh. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Jesus ideology. All right, so I was just talking a little bit about the you never want to mention anything that has a reference to something like that, just because then people imply you have some respect for religion, when obviously I have no respect for it. But there's just a few little themes of this idea of investing in principles, and I sort of made this argument about the whole gun nut stuff, that we have to invest in our social infrastructure. And if we're going to give all of these responsibilities, and say we all individually are responsible, or we all individually have to pave the road to the store, or we all individually, it's just ridiculous. And so we have to create mechanisms that provide our security, and relying on, everybody being a potential menace isn't a good idea. You have to give up stuff, to really have liberty. I mean, the right to own a dog is sort of getting ruined by people who own dogs that are, as a practical fact, a threat to other people's security. I mean, they're the menace. They're pretending I need it to defend myself, but it's not going to defend you. It's going to attack somebody else who had a right not to be attacked. You're going to be the perpetrator, not the defending victim. So not a wrong person. So now that we won't know what that reference is. Yeah, that'll have to be a miss. It's when I saw a lightning bug larvae and how nasty a machine it is. So I was just talking about this idea of context, and when you gain some appreciation for things, and that's the evolution of your personal evolution, is you gain a respect, or you see a value in, or you appreciate the pain of, when you yourself have to experience it. So maybe you don't appreciate what it's like to have a broken leg till you have a broken leg, but some things I think you can imagine, and some things are a little harder to imagine without spending some personal time in that perspective. And so that itself is an interesting subject of whether you actually have to learn every learning experience shouldn't have to be through the school of hard knocks. So, some of it should just be, logical, taking the time to logically appreciate, or to think about, to ponder, to consider. I'll take a pause. All right, back. So, so there's always a context. So the last few days have been kind of rough for me personally. Doing a lot of work, and at the same time dealing with something physically just not quite right. And so I usually have a problem with anxiety, and instead now I'm very calm, but everything is, just not where it's supposed to be. My vision is, something's just off. I mean, I could focus when I have to, but generally speaking, everything's, yeah. And so I was thinking of Van Gogh. They said he had some sort of disease or some sort of condition that made him, where lights did all that fuzzy, blurry stuff. And I definitely, I can definitely relate to that. So that's part of the point, is that you don't appreciate something until maybe you experience it. Like vertigo would have been something I would sort of like, oh, you're afraid of heights. What the hell is that? What is that even? How you did it? And until it happened to me, where, all of a sudden, just the picture of a height, would be disturbing. You just don't appreciate it. And that's sort of irritating about existence, is that you have to know, you have to taste it at least. You have to have some smell of it, some sense of it. And so I guess I was sort of talking about the movie, is that unfortunately they can't give these characters enough background where you could appreciate why they were both so futile. You sort of need that. There was enough of it, but I mean, it just wasn't enough to, give you a real feeling for it. But clearly anybody who's felt suicidal and futile and pointless would automatically relate to the character, just because, that's what life feels like. A grind, an incessant, insidious grind. Comics were just dismal. It was like, oh, it's going to be 60 years before I'm going to be able to so talking about my prospects as a youth, and just figuring out, if you're going to try to be an honest person and do work for honest wages and all that kind of stuff, you're not going to make any money. You have no real hope of ever, seeing the road to success. That's dismal. And again, that's what people are imposing, when they do their little propagating, because that you're not gonna. It's hard to make a good living honestly, and that's just a fact. It's hard to do an honest, good living. The movie, to go watch how they're being satired as shit, So I was talking about, you have to get the horse before the cart kind of thing. The reckless reproducers are portrayed, quite negatively. And it's hard to believe they would go to the theater and enjoy being portrayed as morons. But anyway, that's the point is, though, is that that's what movies need to do, is to give people a glimmer of a reflection of their portrait. It's like the movie, like The Portrait of Dorian Gray. That's another good movie to always, to have as a reference, because it does give you an idea of understanding that there's not some ghostly portrait in the other room, showing what you're becoming, but you can understand that this is what's happening, that your life is your record, and the scars aren't always visible. Fair wage and blah blah blah, none of that was constructed, and they just created a bunch of half measures. Okay, so the society never fixed anything, and we were promised the world of the future, and it never happened, and everything's just been turned into crap, like the internet. Just everything for the exploitanist, and for and by, and nothing with any feel-good integrity. The Peppers just became Google. The antis just become some other version of what they're supposed to be against. Horse. You get the point. You don't need the point over dramatized. So I was just talking about movies run 2 hours, and this one was a 2-hour movie, and it just didn't need to be. But anyway, they just do drag out some things, and but that you're going to find these flaws in anything you watch. That's some of it's a matter of taste, and some of it, I think, there's a real sort of science to the formula, I suppose, where they just aren't being very scientific in making the movie and thinking they, well, we need this scene, even though, no, you really don't. people and other animals, of course. So I was just talking about the exploitation and, you know, the fact that the movie is fodder for considering how exploitive everything is with the truth, you know, whether they're good or bad. And it, you know, always reminds me of the Olympics and just all of this. So competition, I talked a little bit about that, and, you know, the movie has that in it, and the whole spectacle and the whole crassness of you're just watching people slowly commit suicide and cheering and, you know, that kind of thing. And it's a very negative, it's a very ugly part of humanity, and in a way it's gotten uglier. It's pretty much the institution. You know, he did it in some circumstances where he even admits, well, yeah, I mean, it's preposterous what I'm doing, and yes, I've basically conceded I'm going to fail, so I have no plan to succeed, in the sense that I don't have enough of a landing area. So it's something like Evel Knievel. I was wondering where I was going with that. You know, just more, you know, again, it's just why does this trigger any kind of, I need to see this, you know, desire to watch, and just, you know, we're automatically drawn to this, watching Risk and Stupid, and it's just really ugly. And, you know, in that case, it had this real context of he's doing this as a show. I mean, again, it's more show shit. And even when he knew it didn't matter whether he was going to succeed or fail, he was going to fail, because there was no real way to land. You're just saying, what the fuck? For money? This is what you do? Or for fame? You know, it's really quite ridiculous. And by we're in the money kind of prosperity, so you could argue that maybe the 50s and 60s. Yeah, so people did a lot of reproducing, you know, based on, you know, some prospect, I guess, that we were heading for the world of the future. You know, we're going to live on the moon and eat all the popsicles we want, or whatever. You know, the big promises. So people could have some reason. But you'd say, especially in the Depression, they'd have no reason to think it's a good idea to have a kid. And I would argue, in the middle of our idiocracy, it's impossible to find a good reason. Just no good reasons why you would subject a kid to figuring out how to navigate this shitty fucking world that we've, you know, created. Stupidity, are they recklessly stupid, you know, in the sense that they, so you're just trying to measure the difference between, you know, what kind of stupid it is, I guess, or is it just a complete lack of any kind of consideration of anything? You know, that people are just dumb animals, or are they just dumb philosophers? You know, there is a distinction there. I want to spend all the time to explain it, though. So, yeah. So you can just ignore that part. You know, 20-year-old people kind of thing, whatever. You know, 18 to 22ers who are stuck in some kind of. Yeah. So I was just talking about what I see. You know, you see these people selling roofs or whatever, remodeling or some kind of crap, bug sprays or something. They go door to door selling this crap, and, you know, they obviously don't even do any of this work, and they're just selling the service. And you know, and they have a whole spiel, and they're very pushy, and they spiel, and you know, you'd want that for your kid. You know, this should be one of your first real jobs, is just lie, because all these companies are really, you know, they're just resellers. So they're just charging you more, and they'll just make the phone call to call somebody else to do the work. So it's not like, you know, you're not getting anything except a higher priced product. And all of these people have to be paid, you know, obviously. So you're paying a bunch of people to sell, not a bunch of people to actually put a roof on your house. Recognizing they still need, you know, a paycheck from their parents to get by. Yeah, so I mean, there's just so many ways you can recognize that. Gee, it's just so difficult to say, okay, I get my high school education and then boom, and then even if you get a higher degree education, you know, go to college, you know, none of it's really designed to make you a competent participant in industry or anything. So a lot of it is just such a waste in some ways. The whole education system is a waste in terms of the whole teaching idea, and we should pay kids to learn, blah blah blah. Which was, I saw that as a reference in another movie, which was very interesting. I can't remember it now. But where, you know, they actually did do that in, was it some communist country or something? Well, anyway, they actually just paid you, you know, to succeed at school. And, you know, you know, that's, you know, and now with the internet, you know, and the availability of information, it's, you know, you don't need the teacher anymore because we've recorded the teacher, and so all you need is the incentive to listen and learn, and so that's what we should be paying kids to do. But I'm saying, even if you get all that, it's, you know, much of it, you'd be better off just spending 2 years apprenticing in some company, doing different jobs in the company, and then finding the niche that's best for you. I mean, that's probably more like a Japanese model, I'm not sure, but maybe. The difference between a fish that's stuck being in a school, then just talking about the competing, this was part of the culture thing. Like, again, I used Dr. Pepper song as an example, 70s reference again, tying to the movie a little bit. And it's just like the anti just is doing the same thing as the evil is doing, you know, and they're just selling product, and they're pretending that they're giving you something. So it's sort of like the big lie of Google. You know, that they aren't evil, when, yeah, everything about it was evil. The whole construct was a venture capitalist sham, you know, to put all the rest of them out of business by giving it away for free, and taking all the territory. And, you know, it's again, it's crass and ugly, and, you know, this is the world we're find suitable and appropriate to live in. Aware of, oh, I have a knife in my hand, I have to saw. Oh, okay, so just talking about getting old. And, you know, and this is part of your perspective has to evolve to your circumstances and all that kind of crap. And, you know, so now I've become, you know, somebody who, it's not only the darkness of the philosophy that kind of haunts you, and, you know, wherever you're going, you're just saying, was there some point in going there? You know, you know, it all feels like you could enjoy the scenery if you weren't participating in a Trail of Tears march or something. It's like, because I know I'm in this march, I can't enjoy the scenery anymore. You know, that kind of thing. So it's all been tainted by this prospect and the impending doom, and the fact that I can hear, you know, the grinder waiting for me, and you know, and all you need is that little bit of noise to just ruin it. It's like a mosquito or something. It just ruins the fun. It's whatever you're doing in the sense of it doesn't do you much good to think about that when you have to cut the grass. Yeah. So it is annoying that you can't just that we do have to do this learn by living it kind of thing, and that unfortunately, if you live it and then it changes you, and now all of a sudden you can't enjoy the scenery, and you should be able to turn it on and off, but you can't. I mean, the psychology, you become your philosophy, and your philosophy is driven by your psychology, and it's just they're woven together in ways that you can't separate, and that's, I find anyway, really irritating. That when I really don't need negative thoughts, I end up with negative thoughts. Ironic and, ludicrous. There's so much of the whole structure of what's going on, especially now. Idiocracy and all. So it's just really so ugly. Value for your money kind of thing. Because what are they going to do? What's the valuable contribution they're going to make? Oh, that's right, it's not going to be one. So just talking about the Martians or some other thing or whatever. There's nothing to do here but fix what we break. It's just a fact. Not a single MV moment that I ever have. Oh, I wish. So just talking about my perception of how I wouldn't live anybody else's life, that's for sure. I wouldn't volunteer to be anybody else. And, my life sucks. But, oh shit, it's not as, and it's always the context thing. Yeah, they feel better than me, but the price they pay for it, in terms of being retarded, is so ugly that, oh yeah, no, I don't want that. Yuck. Yeah. There's probably more I could say on that, and I lost it to my fatigue. I'll take a little pause. Oh, that's not a pause button. Alright, back. Let's see if we can finish up here. Force a video. Because, I don't really have enough of an agenda. And so it's just a basic... I don't know exactly what I was saying, but some of these videos are just forced. I mean, it's my job. Okay, I got to show up, say something every week. It's hard to sometimes construct enough of a story to tell it without writing some script or something, which I'd be no good at reading anyway, so that really won't work. And that's, some videos are going to be, well, some obviously are. But it's all about, it's one thing when you're trying to do just a little nuanced subject, and then you can just talk about something in some technical way, instant runoff voting or something. I'm just trying to think of, it's just some subjects are only this big. But obviously making some statement about the whole subject of being alive, well, that's a lot bigger subject. And it's pretty hard to knock it into, 10 dots. Connect the 10 dots and you have mastered the subject. Not quite. So I wish the movie had more background because it doesn't have quite enough to emphasize why. So that would be something that I just say that the characters aren't. You don't have enough reason to believe their dilemma or predicament of being hopeless and tired. So you just don't get enough to feel that. Much to do here if it's going to be wasted merely contriving. So I think I was talking about special ed education and different things like, it's just so many things that we invest so much in and so little reward for the investment, and so much is squandered in terms of creating this infrastructure that's going to give people some reason to believe there's some road to success that doesn't involve shenanigans and bullshit. And I suppose there's another context. You can see this, anytime you have some kind of conflict with the government, it becomes apparent that they're all corrupt, and it's all a gang, and they're just protecting their friends, and, they are kind of the communist version of the Communist Party, in the sense that they really aren't for the social interest. They're not for creating some great utopian fairness thing. They're not, they're not for any of that shit. They are just self-interested scum out to graft. And you see it in the politicians, and obviously the politicians are creating the infrastructure for the hiring of the government employees, and they're all members of a pretty disgusting institution. So it's what you see with cops. You can just make the argument that there must be like zero honest cops, because they know all this crap goes on that they know shouldn't go on, and they don't do anything about it. They don't fix the corruption. They know they know that guy drinks and drives. They know that guy's a speeder. They know this guy's a this, and they know the wife beater. They know all that crap, and they know this isn't the way the law is supposed to be enforced, is by a bunch of corrupt enforcers. So the whole thing is just, yuck. So it's like I've almost grown to have a contempt for government employees, because it's like the cop thing. They don't do anything to fix it, and it's really corrupt. Yeah. And anything I do, I have to drag myself to it. Yeah, nothing new there. But yeah, that's getting more draggy, and the more you have to do, the harder you have to drag. The more weight there is to drag, I guess, or whatever. But yes, it was a very draggy week. A lot of dragging. It's that's there's the bright side is you're productive and you feel like you've accomplished something, and but the downside is you're exhausted, and yeah, it's just revealing, it's not just that it's a weakness, but a defectiveness. You're just not. It's just disappointing to be broken. Not working very well, and you just, like I said, I'm just seeing that. But some of it is inevitable. I mean, I don't, it'd be pretty silly for somebody 65 not to wish they were 40 again. But anyway, and just thinking that, gee, I sort of squandered my better health, even though I didn't realize I had better health, and that's another thing that's kind of funny. I mean, obviously in each circumstance, it's like, okay, I have moments where you actually sit here and say, okay, it's so much better than it could be, and you do that, boost thing. Well, imagine if you had a broken leg and how big a pain in the ass this would be, and so, gee, this is so much easier than if you had a broken leg and you had to do it. So, and it does help. I'm just, it's just a fact that thinking that way does help. As miserable as that is, just imagining it being worse makes you feel better and more encouraged about not squandering your opportunities. So while you have the opportunity to breathe normally, you should appreciate how wonderful it is to be able to breathe normally. I mean, it is sad that you have to construct a psychology that starts being grateful for things not being so much worse. So anyway, I guess that's enough of a video and such. So, yeah, so there's not much to say. I mean, like I said, the movie did influence, just because I saw it just last night, and I hadn't seen it in like 30 years. And it's the kind of movie you don't need to see more than once, I guess, in a way, because it just really doesn't have all that nuance to it or any of that kind of stuff. It's just a little story and a little bit of rhetoric, and but the theme underneath it is, and I suppose it's sort of, obviously the first time you see it, it's got a punchline if somebody hasn't already told you. So it does punch you. But it's so basic in the statement of just pointing out that, yeah, this is too true a commentary, too true what it's supposed to be is a, what's the word for something that's supposed to remind you of or smell of or be a little bit like, and it's it's making a social statement that's bigger than the movie itself, obviously, in a way. But anyway, yeah, so enough said, I think, and so till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. So I will continue to evolve this week, hopefully, and we'll see what I evolve into. So till the next time and such and so forth.